I'm Teisha Bader with Shalom TV's news update for Thursday, November the 14th, 2013. The Israel Air Force struck 2 underground rocket launchers in the Gaza Strip this morning in response to mortar fire from Gaza into southern Israel earlier today. The 2 mortar shells fired early this morning at Israel did not cause damage or injury. One landed on the Israeli side of the border near an IDF unit that was working near the border fence. The second possibly exploded in Palestinian territory. An IDF spokesman said the terror group Hamas bears responsibility for the attack and that, quote, the IDF will tolerate no attempt to harm Israeli citizens and soldiers and will continue to act against any element which uses terror against Israel. The IDF reported that the retaliatory strike on the rocket launchers in Gaza were a success and IAF aircraft returned to base safely. The mortar attacks on Israel this morning come exactly 1 year after Israel launched Operation Pillar of Defense in order to root out terror infrastructure in the Gaza Strip. Earlier this week, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had addressed the anniversary during a visit to the IDF Gaza division and said that Hamas is continuing to manufacture and store rockets in Gaza residential areas. And although Israel will strictly uphold international law, it will not, quote, sit on its hands in the face of terrorist threats. Netanyahu said it is our full legal and moral right to direct fire that is as precise as possible at those who fire indiscriminately at our people, adding the responsibility for any collateral damage that is liable to be caused to the residents of Gaza lies squarely on Hamas's shoulders. Thousands of mourners gathered last night for the funeral of slain IDF soldier Eden Atias. 18-year-old Atias was stabbed to death yesterday morning on a bus in Afula on his way back to his army base by a Palestinian teen who said he was seeking revenge for relatives held in Israeli prison. Atias had only been in the army for a few weeks at the time of the attack. He was laid to rest at the military cemetery in Upper Nazareth last night. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responded to the stabbing yesterday, saying peace cannot happen when there is still incitement in Palestinian society to commit such attacks. Israeli Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon sent his condolences to the Atias family and said that the war against terrorism with much sorrow has casualties, but we will continue our firm struggle against terrorism, those who perpetrate it and carry it out. And Israel's President Shimon Peres called the murder despicable and said every soul in Israel is a whole world in our hearts, adding, I'm certain the government and the whole country will do whatever it takes so cases like that will not repeat. And in an apparent price tag or revenge attack for the murder of Atias, Ynet reports that a house belonging to a Palestinian family was set on fire early this morning in the village of Sinjil. 5 family members were taken to the hospital after suffering smoke inhalation. And graffiti reading, "Regards from Eden, Revenge," was sprayed on the house's door. Israeli security forces are investigating the incident. The IDF condemned the attack, suspected to be the doing of far-right activists. An army official said the IDF considers with great severity events which divert the security forces' attention from their main task of fighting terror and that destabilize the area. The Shin Bet revealed today that 2 Palestinian men accused of murdering IDF Colonel in Reserve Saraya Ofer in the Jordan Valley last month originally had planned to rob Ofer, but decided to kill him once they realized his high ranking in the IDF. The 2 suspects, 18-year-old Oda Fried Talb Haruv and 21-year-old Bashir Ahmad Oda Haruv, admitted during their interrogation that 2 weeks before the murder, they went to Ofer's home to scout it out as a robbery, but after discovering that he was a senior military officer, they decided to murder him and his wife, quote, as a present to the Palestinian people and for Hamas's prisoners in honor of the Muslim holiday of Eid al-Fitr. The 2 attacked Ofer on the night of October the 10th with metal bars and axes. His wife managed to escape. She remains hospitalized for wounds sustained during the attack. Police in Belgium arrested a man whom they suspect was planning an attack against Israeli diplomats in Brussels. The incident occurred last month when security personnel at the Israeli embassy in the Brussels suburb of Uccle found a concealed knife during a security check on the man when he tried to enter the embassy. They then turned the man over to local police. The arrest reportedly took place on October the 17th. Belgian radio station RTL reported about the incident this week. An intersection outside the Bulgarian embassy in Washington was renamed this week in honor of a Bulgarian lawmaker credited with helping save the lives of thousands of Jews during the Holocaust. The intersection is in Washington, D.C.'s DuPont Circle neighborhood. It will now be known as Dimitar Peshev Plaza. Peshev, who was a former deputy speaker of Bulgaria's parliament, protested and ultimately halted a deportation order that would have sent Jews in Bulgaria to Nazi death camps. Peshev, who died in 1973, has also been recognized by Israel's Holocaust Memorial Yad Vashem as righteous among the nations. Former D.C. neighborhood commissioner and the leading advocate for the honor, Neil Glick, said of Peshev at a public ceremony on Tuesday at the embassy that if there was a Dimitar Peshev in every country in World War II, there would be no Holocaust. And the only hospital in Belgium that deals exclusively with cancer, signed an agreement with an Israeli hospital to collaborate in the fields of healthcare, medical education, clinical research, and hospital management. The Jules Bordet Institute in Brussels signed an agreement Tuesday with the Hadassah Medical Organization in Jerusalem. Speaking on behalf of the Bordet Institute, Professor Maurice Sosnowski, who is both head of its anesthesiology department and president of Hadassah International Belgium, said joint science and research is proof that the stupidity of hatred contributes nothing to humankind, but cooperation and life-saving medicine will save the world. Another medical agreement was signed in Jerusalem this week on research cooperation in giving medications to children. That was also signed Tuesday by the Hebrew University's School of Pharmacy and Drexel University and Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And Israel and the World Bank today agreed to develop their first joint technology fund, which will promote Israeli technology in developing markets. Israel's Economy and Trade Minister Naftali Bennett met with World Bank Managing Director Sri Mulyani Indrawati and said that Israel would invest an initial $1 million towards the fund. Indrawati praised Israel's technological advances and said that she wanted to see more Israeli companies participating in World Bank projects. Gidon Raff, the award-winning Israeli screenwriter behind the hit series Homeland, has sold a new series to an American network. Dig has been purchased as 6-episode series from Universal Cable Productions for USA Networks, which is a subsidiary of NBC Universal. This marks the first time that an American network has committed to an entire series of an Israeli-produced show without first buying a pilot. The show tells the story of an American FBI agent stationed in Jerusalem, and the show will be shot entirely on location in the city. Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat welcomed the film production. He said, "When we combine Hollywood's creative potential with Jerusalem's historic backdrop, it will result in the ability to connect hundreds of millions of viewers around the world to this unique and beautiful city." And tonight on Shalom TV, in commemoration of the 75th anniversary of Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass, a special program featuring Ernie Michel, who lived through Kristallnacht in Germany and saw his synagogue burned to the ground. He recalls this pogrom and his life during the Holocaust as told in Promises to Keep, One Man's Journey Against Incredible Odds. That's tonight at 9 here on Shalom TV and ShalomTV.com. And that's Shalom TV's news update for Thursday, November the 14th, 2013. I'm Teisha Bader.